Hey guys, Dylan from the Geek Duo here, and today I'll be bringing you my Hero Academia Chapter 300 review, read through. Now, in all honesty, before we get started, I personally thought that for Chapter 300 there'd be a bigger event than what we actually get. Like, I thought something massive was going to happen this chapter, but it didn't. We only got the continuations of two plot points we saw in the last couple chapters, but yeah. The chapter starts with a view of a city. It says, and there's narration over these first three panels. The city has fallen into a panic. While the citizens were still trying to wrap their heads around the chaos from 2 days prior, a horde of heinous villains had been set loose in a series of unprecedented events, and the mere existence of Nomu had become the last straw. Now, like I said, the first panel is a city, or, well, it's a single street of the city. Someone's looking up at all the high-rise buildings and all that. The second is a collection of shadowy figures, most likely the villains that all got broken out of prison. Like the black shadowy figures on a black background, we can't tell much about any of them. And the third one is just a panel of all the various, well, not all the various Nomu, but a lot of the high-end and minor Nomus that got like the spotlight, because you see Hood, you see the high-ends from, well, the near high-ends, the white Nomu from the Stain arc, and the black Nomu from the USJ arc. And as they're saying, the mere existence of the Nomu had been the last straw. The black Nomu from the USJ arc is pointing to himself with a bubble of me above his head. So he's like, really? I'm the last straw? We then continue on with this narration, and Midoriya says, what Hawks had previously mentioned to Endeavor about nationwide rumors of unconfirmed Nomu sightings, those frightening inhuman specimens had first appeared at UA and ate away at everyone's peace of mind ever since. The murmurings had taken root in people as the manifestation of their growing anxiety, grievances that had piled up higher and higher until it all came crashing down. We then cut inside what looks to be a cafe as we get the return of the Cider House gang. These are the people that Bakugo and Todoroki busted once they got their hero's license. The ones that were using the Detonarat equipment to shoot high-powered sprays of seltzer water and all that. Yeah, that's these guys. The leader says, first things first, grab the food and the cash. We're really able to walk around freely? The big guy up there must be shining down on us. We then find out that they were from the Xi'an prison, and as they're trying to rob this store, what looks to be the owner or a worker dashes out from behind the counter with a support item, saying that he'd get in the way of them robbing the place. The seltzer water guy says, what do you know, a civilian, don't mess with, but he's interrupted by realizing that the shopkeeper has the support item, and he says, this town is under our protection. The Cider House gang and a bunch of civilians or workers get into a scuffle, and then we cut away from that scene as a voice is coming through an earpiece. Witness reports from Shinjuku. The side house gang from Xi'an prison. Get over there. Wash. The seats have already been sown. Those poor citizens expect a hero, and when they want to defend themselves, support will already be within their reach. Against villains, ordinary civilians without any combat training will arm themselves and create even greater damage by getting the whole neighborhood caught in the crossfire. Within just 2 days, these kinds of incidents are only increasing nationwide. Wash pulls up on the cafe or shop or whatever it was, or more where that used to be, because it and the surrounding buildings had been nearly completely destroyed during that scuffle. There are several bodies laying about. Wash picks up the support item that the worker was using, but before he can say anything other than Wash, he's hit in the head by a frying pan, or more, hit in the lid by a frying pan, as an angered civilian says, "You're too late. What the hell is wrong with you? Look what happened. You guys tell us to stay inside our houses, and we still get dragged into this. Well, Wash, what have you been doing?" Let's run a cycle straight to the hospital. So it turns out that Wash can actually say things other than his own name, so I don't know why he just says his name in all other appearances we've seen him, but he opens the door to the washing machine that he's in and releases his bubble to pick up all the injured civilians and all that. The heroes had dwindled away. We then cut away from this scene to a press report where a semi-familiar figure is laying their helmet down on the table. This is Yoroi Musha, the number 9 hero. He was the guy in the full armor set whose quirk we don't actually know, and we didn't even see him really fighting in the war. We saw him in one panel as he was charging the hospital, and then didn't see him again that entire battle. A senior in the industry who reached a degree of fame and achievements and had continued working with the same ethics he had in his youth. This damage deserves no punishment lighter than seppuku. I just don't want it. As he's announcing his retirement to the people, the reporters are upset at him. One of them says, "You talked big about slitting your belly, but you're just resigning. You're just dodging responsibility. What are we supposed to do now that you've quit? Screw you, old man. I was your fan." And they're throwing like cans, pens, and other things from the meeting at him as he's walking off stage. With this began a wave of resignations among the heroes, and from a world that had only known peace came quite a number of people who had now begun to question what the meaning of a hero was. We see the statue of All Might at Camino to signify his last battle and in memory of all the people that died in that battle, the one where he's standing with the one arm raised, and someone has hung a sign from his neck saying, "I am not here." Now, this can be interpreted 2 ways. One is saying that heroes, he wasn't a hero because the thing about no hero really exists in this world, and that's a slander piece on All Might. Or it's saying, "I am no longer here," and saying he was the only hero, and his resignation is what killed the hero industry because it left it in the hands of the top 10 that it is now. And what's more odd is how they began to filter through the heroes. And the people decided to place all the blame onto one man's shoulders. Now, as this is being said, we see a familiar face, or more, a familiar sword, as Stain approaches what appears to have been his old safe house and pulls his sword out of its sheath, obviously gearing back up to become the hero killer again. Probably going after people like Endeavor and Hawks and all that because of recent events. And the one man's shoulders that this is all being put onto is Endeavor, who is now awake in his hospital room. His doctor tells him, "You'll be happy to know that Shoto-kun is going to be okay. You barely made it out alive yourself, Endeavor-san. I'm cheering for your recovery." Now, I would have given that guy the Toad voice, but I cannot do Toad voice because he's got a mushroom for a head. Maybe he's related to Kinoku? The mushroom girl from 1B, or more 2B now. Endeavor says, "I can't breathe. My head is fuzzy. The anesthetics still haven't worn off. I'm alive." He thinks back to Darby saying, "Come dance with your son here in hell." He knew I would have survived, because he knew the kind of man I am. I couldn't even move. In that moment, as my son faced a crisis, I completely froze up. Bastionus himself may be an inconsistency in his accusations, but I can't deny the truth to the rest. These next three thought squares or memory squares, I don't actually know who is saying them, because the first two seem to match the picture of Darby from his message to all of Japan, yet the third one seems to lead into the two squares after that. So I don't actually know who says these three. It says, "I was deemed a failure. It wasn't long before I was tossed aside and forgotten. Endeavor doesn't have an ounce of empathy for others inside him, a self-righteous man who wallows in his own self-importance. It's all coming back to me. Everything that I've done in my past. Even though I survived, Endeavor is dead. He's a mass murderer, but I can't fight my son." As he's saying it's all coming back to him, we see an image of Toya that we had yet to see before. Once his hair had all turned white, he has a couple minor burn marks on his hands, and he's grabbing at his hair, seemingly pulling it out and crying, likely begging his father to let him to continue training and everything. And as he says, "I can't fight my son," tears start falling from his eyes, and suddenly we see that Shoto was standing at the doorway looking in and listening to what Endeavor was saying, and upon seeing his father crying, he's just like, "Yep." And then he turns to Fuyumi and Natsuo in the hall and mumbles out, "He's crying." I'm not sure if he's whispering here or if he's just straining his vocal cords because of the burns to them, but yeah, it's unclear which one of them is. And as he's saying this, Endeavor shouts out, "Shoto!" The door reopens and Fuyumi says, "Dad, how convenient. We all just got here." You guys are unharmed? Why were you crying? Sorry. I'm truly sorry. Sorry I'm too late. The regret and guilt for my crimes, it's all weighing on me now. Now, my heart is... Your heart is what? Regrets, guilt, everybody's carrying these feelings. Much more than you. Ray? Why are you here? I came to talk about our family, and about Toya. So it seems that my prediction from the last, not the last chapter, the chapter before, about the mysterious figure in the hallway being Ray, turned out to be correct. And she's brought along with her a flower in her meeting with Endeavor. Specifically, the flower that was sitting inside her hospital room. And the one we found out that Endeavor had sent her, and she told him one time at the start of their relationship she loved. So this is going to be a continuous symbolic meaning of not just their relationship, but the relationship of all the Todorokis in terms of Enji, who I'm going to try and start calling now because, as he said earlier, Endeavor is dead. There's no way he can bring that name out of the mud with his past, because he's going to admit to his past. Unless of course Ray talks him out of it, but we'll see what happens with that. There's not really much that happened. It's almost all Todoroki centered, or Midoriya's narration, so there's not really much to talk about. There is, however, the part of my last chapter read through where I said that the guy with the support item might have been an undercover hero. Now I think it's just a civilian who had bought a Detonarat support item after the war to try and defend himself from the criminals now that heroes are unreliable. So that seems to be a continuing thing that we're going to have to deal with. Maybe even seeing some of them come to blows with Stain or try and work with Stain. I don't know. I did say that Stain was going to break out of the prison because we did see him. There's now only one person from that prison break that we've still yet to see. That's Kurogiri. And honestly, since he's been since Obero's been awakened within him, I'm not actually sure where he would go once he teleports. Because yeah, he needs to know the exact coordinates, but you'd think that if he had have been going with the League of Villains, they would have shown him at that final resting place. And the only other place I can think of him going would be to Aizawa. But since Aizawa and Hisashi are in the hospital, the same hospital that Endeavor's in, and we've not seen him there, I'm going to say he didn't go there either, so who knows? But yeah, it seems that the next chapter is going to be a continuation of this Todoroki family scene, or maybe we'll get another scene of a hero that's continuing to be active, coming to aid civilians and being told that they're not wanted. Who knows? I was honestly expecting this to have been a villain-centric chapter, given that the fact that we've still got the whole one for all and all that, And this is 2 days after that, so you'd think Shigaraki would have rested enough to be at least conscious by now, and trying to get All for One out of his head, but who knows. Anyway, there's not really much else to say, so I'm going to end this here. As usual, if you guys liked this read through, if you managed to notice anything in these chapters that I missed, or you want to correct me on things I've gotten wrong, comment them down below. I love to talk to you guys. And with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one.